Imagine standing beside a river, a quiet river, flowing through a narrow mountain valley. The water looks completely normal. People are going about their day, and then, within minutes, that same river becomes powerful enough to sweep away roads, bridges, vehicles, and entire structures. But how can a river change so violently, so quickly? On August 26, 2026, that question became a devastating reality in Nepal. In the northern district of Rasua, the Bote Koshi River suddenly surged, flooding areas around Timur and Siabrubesi, damaging infrastructure, and making rescue operations extremely difficult. But there is something unusual about this disaster. The story may not have started with heavy rain. So, where did all that water come from? To understand that, we have to go higher, much higher. The Himalayas are more than mountains covered in snow. They are a massive natural water system. There is ice, glaciers, glacial lakes, and steep, unstable slopes. And when something suddenly happens high above a valley, the consequences can travel downhill incredibly fast. In the current Rasua disaster, preliminary assessments suggest that an ice avalanche may have temporarily blocked the Lhende River. Water began building up behind the obstruction, and if that natural barrier suddenly breaks, the stored water can rush downstream with tremendous force. But there is an important detail. Scientists are still investigating exactly what triggered the flood. And that matters, because a flash flood does not always have a single cause. So what exactly is a flash flood? It isn't simply a river slowly rising. A flash flood happens when a huge amount of water reaches an area in a very short period of time. And in the mountains, the water doesn't always travel alone. It can carry mud, boulders, trees, broken ice, and enormous amounts of debris. At that point, you're no longer dealing with ordinary river water. You're dealing with a rapidly moving wall of water and debris. And that is what makes mountain flash floods so destructive. But why are mountains so dangerous? The answer is simple: gravity. Mountain rivers flow down steep slopes. There are few wide, flat areas where the water can spread out and lose energy. Instead, the water is often forced through narrow valleys. Now add rocks, mud, trees, and debris. The flow becomes heavier, faster, and far more destructive. That is why a flash flood in the Himalayas can sometimes look less like a river and more like an entire mountainside moving downstream. Now imagine a river flowing normally through a mountain valley. Suddenly, a massive landslide or avalanche blocks its path. The river doesn't stop. It starts building behind the blockage. Water keeps coming. The pressure increases. And for a while, everything may look strangely quiet. Then, the natural dam fails, and all that stored water is released at once. A powerful flood wave begins racing downstream. And here's the frightening part. The disaster may begin miles away from the people who eventually experience it. By the time they see the water, the event may already be unstoppable. This is one reason Nepal is especially vulnerable. The country sits directly in the Himalayas. It has steep mountain terrain, major rivers descending from high elevations, glaciers, glacial lakes, and a powerful monsoon season. That means several hazards can interact with each other. Heavy rainfall can trigger landslides. Landslides can block rivers. Glacial lakes can suddenly release water. Avalanches can disturb river systems. And all of these processes can contribute to flash flooding. There is another important point. Even when total seasonal rainfall is not unusually high, short bursts of extremely intense rainfall can still produce dangerous flooding. So less rain overall does not necessarily mean less danger. Sometimes The real problem is how quickly the rain arrives and where it falls. But then comes another question. Why can't people simply get out of the way? Because flash floods are fast. In a normal flood, you may watch the water gradually rise. You may have hours, sometimes longer, to react. But a flash flood can arrive with very little warning. The danger might begin high in the mountains, several miles away, while people downstream have no idea what is happening. And by the time the flood becomes visible, there may be only minutes to escape. That is why early warning systems matter. So do evacuation plans, river monitoring, careful construction, and knowing which areas are most vulnerable. Because surviving a flash flood isn't only about building stronger structures. Sometimes it's about getting people out before the water arrives. Now, go back to Nepal. On August 26th, the Botikoshi River suddenly surged.